Adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 291. Bhadra-Ghaṭa-Jātaka. A never-do-well did once, etc. This story the master told at Jetavana monastery, about a nephew of Anathapindika. This person had squandered an inheritance of 40 crores of gold. Then the visited his uncle, who gave him 1,000, and asked him to trade with it. The man squandered this, and then came again. And once more he was given 500. Having squandered this like the rest, next time his uncle gave him 2 coarse garments. And when he had worn these out, and once more applied, his uncle had him taken by the neck and turned out of doors. The fellow was helpless, and fell down by a side wall and died. They dragged him outside and throw him down there. Anathapindika went and told the Buddha what had happened to his nephew. Said the master, "How could you expect to satisfy the man whom I long ago failed to satisfy, even when I gave him the wishing cup?" And at his request, he proceeded to tell him an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was reigning in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as a rich merchant's son. And after his father's death, took his place. In his house was buried a treasure of 400 million. He had an only son. The Bodhisattva gave alms and did good until he died, and then he came to life again as Saka, king of the gods. His son proceeded to make a pavilion across the road, and sat down with many friends round him, to drink. He paid 1,000 pieces to runners and tumblers, singers and dancers, and passed his time in drinking, gluttony and debauchery. He wandered about, asking only for song, music and dancing, devoted to his boon companions, sunk in sloth. So in a short time he squandered all his treasure of 400 millions, all his property, goods and furniture, and got so poor and miserable that he had to go about clad in rags. Saka, as he meditated, became aware how poor he was. Overcome with love for his son, he gave him a wishing cup, with these words: "Son, take care not to break this cup. So long as you keep it, your wealth will never come to an end. So take good care of it." And then he returned to heaven. After that the man did nothing but drink out of it. One day, he was drunk, and threw the cup into the air, catching it as it fell. But once he missed it. Down it fell upon the earth, and smashed. Then he got poor again, and went about in rags, begging, bowl in hand, till at last he lay down by a wall, and died. When the master had finished this tale, he went on. A never-do-well did once a bowl acquire, a bowl that gave higher all his heart's desire. And of this bowl so long as he took care, his fortunes were all fair. When, proud and drunken, in a careless hour, he broke the bowl that gave him all this power, naked, poor fool. In rags and tatters, he fell in great misery. Not otherwise whosoever great fortune owes, but in the enjoying it no measure knows, is scorched soon, even as the dishonest poor soul that broke his wishing bowl. Repeating these stanzas in his perfect wisdom, he identified the birth. At that time Anathapindika's nephew was the rascal who broke the lucky cup, but I myself was Saka. Source: adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 292. Supatta-Jātaka. Here, in Benares city, etc. This story the master told in Jetavana monastery, about a meal of rice mixed with new ghee, with red fish to flavor it, which was given by elder monk Sariputra to Bimbadavi. The circumstances are like those given above in the Abantara birth tale. Here too the holy sister had a pain in the stomach. The excellent Rahul told the elder monk. He seated Rahul in his waiting room, and went to the king to get the rice, red fish, and new ghee. The boy gave it to the holy sister, his mother. No sooner had she eaten than the pain subsided. The king sent messengers to make inquiries, and after that always sent her that kind of food. One day they began to talk about it in the hall of truth. Friend, the captain of the faith satisfied the sister with such and such food. The master came in, and asked what they were talking about. They told him. Said he, "This is not the first time, brother, that Saraputra has given Rahul's mother what she wanted. He did the same before." So saying, he told an old world tale of his previous birth. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as a crow. He grew up, and became chief of 80,000 crows, a crow king, by name, Supatta or Fairwing. And his chief mate went by the name of Supasa or Softa, his chief captain was called Sumukho Prettybeak. With his 80,000 subjects, he lived hard by Benares. One day he and his mate in search of food passed over the king's kitchen. The king's cook had been preparing lots of dishes, of all sorts of fish, and he had uncovered the dishes for a moment, to cool them. Queen Crow smelt the odor of the food, and longed for a hit. But that day she said nothing. However, the next day, when King Crow proposed that they should go for feeding, she said, "Go by yourself. There's something I want very much." "What is it?" asked he. "I want some of the king's food to eat. And as I can't get it, I am going to die." The crow sat down to think. Prettybeak approached him and asked if anything had displeased him. King Crow told him what it was. "Oh, that'll be all right," said the captain. And added, to console them both, "You stay where you are today, and I'll fetch the meat." So he gathered the crows together, and told them the matter. "Now come, and let's get it," said he. And off they all flew together to Benares. He placed them in companies here and there, near the kitchen to watch. And he, with 8 champions, sat on the kitchen roof. While waiting for the king's food to be served, he gave his directions to these. "When the food is taken up, I'll make the man drop the dishes. Once that is done, there's an end of me. So 4 of you must fill your mouths with the rice, and 4 with the fish, and feed our royal pair with them. And if they ask where I am, say I'm coming." Well, the cook got his various dishes all ready, hung them on a balance pole, and went off towards the king's rooms. As he passed through the court, the crow captain with a signal to his followers flew and settled upon the carrier's chest. Struck him with extended claws, with his beak, sharp as a spear point, pecked the end of the man's nose, and with his 2 feet stopped up his jaws. The king was walking up and down upon an upper floor, when looking out of a large window he saw what the crow was doing. He hailed the carrier. "Hello you, down with the dishes and catch the crow." So the man dropped the dishes and caught the crow tight. "Come here," cried the king. Then the crows ate all they wanted, and plucked up the rest as they had been told, and carried it off. Next all the others flocked up, and ate what remained. The 8 champions gave it to their king and queen to eat. The craving of Softa was appeased. The servant who was carrying the dinner brought his crow to the king. "O crow," said he, "you have shown no respect for me. You have broken my servant's nose. You have smashed my dishes. You have recklessly thrown away your life. What made you do such things?" Answered the crow, "O great king. Our king lives near Benares, and I am captain of his forces. His wife conceived a great longing, and wanted a taste of your food. Our king told me what she craved. At once I devoted my life. Now I have sent her the food. My desire is accomplished. This is the reason why I acted as I did." And to explain the matter, he said, "Here in Benares city, O great king, there dwells a king of crows that night Fairwing, who was attended by a following of 80,000 crows. Softa, his mate, had one overcoming wish. She craved a supper of the king's own fish, fresh caught, cooked in his kitchen, such a dish as to king's tables goes. You now see me as their messenger. It was my royal master sent me here. And for that I my monarch do revere I wounded that man's nose." When the king heard this, he said, we do great honor to men, and yet cannot make friends of them. Even though we make presents of such things as a whole village, we can find no one willing to give his life for us. But this creature, crow as he is, sacrifices life for his king. He is very noble, sweet-speaking, and good. He was so pleased with the crow's good qualities that he did him the honor of giving him a white umbrella. But the crow saluted the king with this, his own gift, and talked at length upon the virtues of fair wing. The king sent for him, and heard his teaching, and sent them both food of the same sort as he ate himself. And for the rest of the crows he had cooked each day a large measure of rice. He himself walked according to the advice of the Bodhisattva, and protecting all creatures, practiced virtue. The advices of Fair Wing the Crow were remembered for 700 years. When the master had ended this discourse, he identified the birth. At that time the king was Ananda, the captain was Saraputra, but Supatta was I myself. Source: adapted from archaic translation by W.H.D. Rhys. Jataka number 293. Kāya-Vicchinda-Jātaka. Down overcome with a direful illness, etc. This story the master told at Jetavana monastery about a certain man. We learn that there lived at Sravasthi city a man was suffering by jaundice, given up by the doctors as a hopeless case. His wife and son wondered who could be found to cure him. The man thought, if I can only get rid of this disease, I will take to the religious life. Now it happened that some days after he took something that did him good, and got well. Then he went to Jetavana monastery, and asked admission into the order. He received the lesser and greater holy order of disciples, from the master, and before long attained to sainthood. One day after this the brethren were talking together in the hall of truth. Friend, so and so had jaundice, and vowed that if he got well he would embrace the religious life. He did so, and now he has attained sainthood. The master came in, and asked what they talked about, sitting there together. They told him. Then he said, brothers, this is not the only man who has done so. Long ago wise men, recovering from sickness, embraced a religious life, and secured their own advantage. And he told an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva was born in a Brahmin family. He grew up, and began to amass wealth. But he fell sick of the jaundice. Even the physicians could do nothing for him, and his wife and family were in despair. He resolved that if he ever got well, he would embrace the religious life. And having taken something that did him good, he did get well, upon which he went away to Himalaya and became a religious. He cultivated the faculties and the attainments, and lived in ecstatic happiness. All this time, thought he, I have been without this great happiness. And he breathed out this aspiration. Down overcome with a direful illness, I in utter torment and illness lie, my body quickly withers, like a flower laid in the sun upon the dust to dry. The noble seems ignoble, and pure the impure seems, he that is blind, all beautiful a sink of foulness deems. Shame on that sickly body, shame, I say, hateful, impure, and full of foul decay. When fools are lazy, they fail to win new birth in heaven, and wander from the way. Thus did the great being describe in various ways the nature of impurity and constant disease. And being disgusted with the body and all its parts, cultivated all his life the four excellent conditions of life, till he went to Brahma's world. When the master had ended this discourse, he proclaimed the truths, and identified the birth. Many were they who attained the fruition of the first path, and so on. At that time I myself was the ascetic.